thought that I might try talking about like some of the things that I do when I compose, and they're actually things I think about when I'm improvising. One of my favorite things to do, like when Susie Allen and I and Russ Pearson in Nirazu 3 used to improvise. Susie had these great exercises, ultimately, that we improvised around. So like we decide on a set before we went on stage, and it would be like, okay, we're gonna do 2.5 minutes of introductory with no talking before, and then we'll do a suite of 3 or 4 15-second improvisations, and then we'll do introductions, and then we'll do 6 minutes, and then 4 minutes, and then we'll do a break. And we could do it, and I used to sit there with a stopwatch, and I could time it, and we were like on the money every time. So improvising became, is a super tool for working through ideas if you're able to be free enough. And I I've talked about this. I'm a nervous performer, and I freeze up when I have to read music and stuff, and then I don't consider myself an improviser. But if you are, and part of this posting these little videos is like to get into doing it, and to get into the rigor of doing it, and to push myself to like be uninhibited about it. It doesn't have to be great, but be uninhibited with the judgment, positive judgment. Uninhibited with positive judgment. Thank you very much. But I thought about maybe I would talk about different elements of things that of my background that have influenced how I write music. That howling in the background is Petunia, who likes to stand at the attic door because I live upstairs in the attic space, and she really wants to go into that attic and walk around, and it's not going to happen. Anyway, so we'll try it and see if it feels comfortable to talk about different elements. And I have a list, and one of the elements that I work with is melody, because I wrote pop music for X number of years, 15 years or something like that. I wrote songs, and in the songs I was very particular about writing a hook was actually pretty easy for me. It was the verse, and the verse had to be complementary to the hook and hummable to me. Those are my criteria. So it's like, I have to want to sing the verse. The hook can't be the only thing that the listener comes away with. And as one of the things that led me away from writing pop music is my verses and my hooks got longer and longer and more complex to the point where, they were like becoming very opera-like and aria-like. And it had to do with me really needing to stretch my creative wings. So how did I land on writing atonal music? Well, it's because, frankly, I got really damn sick of writing melodies, period, end of story. But one of the things that I learned, because my teachers instructed me, my mentors, really pushed me not to throw away everything I knew in pop music. One of the things that they pushed me to do is like, what do you know from pop that you can bring into your chamber music writing? And this idea of melody, I had been very interested. I wrote my undergrad thesis on Arnold Schoenberg, and much later, flash forward just after graduate school, I had the extreme pleasure of meeting the Schoenberg family and having dinner in their house and standing in the room where good old Arnie used to actually compose. But in Los Angeles, his house in LA, not his house in Vienna. But I'll save that for another trip. But I was very curious about serialism, and atonality didn't really work for me in the way that it was mechanical. However, you listen to the lyric suite, which in my mind has to be played in kind of a romantic style. The lyric suite, is a string quartet by Alban Berg, who was one of the 3 serialists, or one of Arnold Schoenberg's students, or who followed in his steps at the turn of the century Vienna. I'm not explaining that well because I'm trying to keep this video short. I give 2.5-hour lectures on this stuff at universities. Um, but if you listen to the lyric suite, which is, you can look up on YouTube, I highly recommend the recording by the Arditi Quartet. It really needs to be played in a romantic style because of the post-romantic era that it was written in. That's how those performers, in my opinion, would have approached it. It is quite lovely. I mean, that sounds so classical music, because it's quite lovely. No, it's really gorgeous. It actually brought somebody, one of my students who was an ROTC enlistee, I don't know what you call them. She was ROTC, and she was a bona fide, deeply indoctrinated country western music fan, and hated classical music. And in my class, we listened to the lyric suite after I gave a lecture on the serial aspect of it. I asked her, I went straight to her and I was like, what did you think? And she had tears in her eyes, and she said, that was one of the most beautiful things I've ever heard. So how these things are sculpted, is my point, is an issue. And like taking a cue from the lyric suite, I approached my broken melodies, as I call them. There's no reason why you can't write a tonality with lyric sensibility. And that's one thing, when the Long Beach Opera commissioned me, they were very excited because I wrote very lyrically. And the idea in my mind is to hear this melody can be any string of notes that we put together. It's how you phrase it that makes it melodic, right? So that's how I approach melody. And my criteria for working with a string of notes that could be a row, it could be a series, it could be, I suppose those are the same thing depending on how you look at it. It could just be a string of notes. As I look on, how can I phrase this so that it has some kind of push-pull that gives it the implication of a meaning, even if there is no melodic meaning there. A lot of my music, my atonal stuff, I mean, I've been writing stuff that in my mind is pretty tonal. Something will come in and it'll drift away. And the idea there is exactly that it could be a melody, but I'm not going to repeat it. It's not going to be a theme. So, and a lot of my earlier, stuff after grad school, about 3 years after grad school, when I began to explore that more deeply, that's what you would hear happen. Nowadays, I'm working more thematically and more strongly with melody, but I do try to work with breaking the idea of the melody apart so that it's not so, there's a lot of traditional voice leading, things go a certain way, intervals happen in a certain succession, so that it's easy for us to sing. I'm not interested in that. I'm really more interested in taking strings of notes and putting them together in a melodic way. I don't know if that made any sense at all, because I was trying to talk really fast to keep it under 10 minutes, and now I've gone over. So I'm gonna leave that there, and we'll call this an experimental share, and I'll be back tomorrow morning. Bye.